Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Joes podcast. I am Justin, and I am here with my two friends, Casey and Noah. How are you two gentlemen doing today?
Very well.
Well, guys, we're here today to talk about a film that actually came out a little while ago, I guess. So we're getting to it a little late, but better late than never, as I always say. We're going to talk about a little-known film called Captain America: Civil War, which I believe was probably one of the most anticipated films for all three of us, I imagine, especially for the kind of kicking off the summer movie season. I think this is a movie that, for all three of us who have been kind of following Marvel, and I know for me, who I feel probably more like a recent convert, I was a lapsed Marvel fan, and then I kind of came back after watching Winter Soldier. And I've been really invested ever since in this, kind of contained universe that they've created.
You know, a universe or a franchise has gotten big when you start using religious terminology to describe it. I'm a lapsed Marvelite.
Well, that's what movies are for me. So
my brother has become a DC blasphemer.
As an atheist, that is movies are probably the closest thing to a religion that I have. Movies and music. Anyway. So, because I imagine we're all very big fans of this, and maybe we could just kind of get into our general thoughts. First of all, does either of you like to start off with your thoughts on this film?
So, as Justin said, I've been a huge fan of the Marvel films since the first Iron Man, and I've always been, I think, trying to pull you guys more to my profiting. Because you've been holding out for... I know you guys didn't really enjoy the first Avengers as much as I did, and I'm like, what? It's the best movie?
What? I like that. I never said that I didn't enjoy it.
Oh, I'm thinking Justin then.
It's one of the few movies in the franchise that I do think is legitimately great.
Yes. It's the one that'll probably hold up the longest. Maybe with the exception of the first Iron Man and probably even Winter Soldier, I think is a great one, which I'd love to re-see. But I liked this movie. It was good. It was fun. It was enjoyable, like all these mindless superhero films are. I don't know if it really, personally, I found it to stand out as like an instant classic, like we were just calling the first Avengers. It suffers again from, I guess, too much, for lack of a better word. I mean, one of the things that made Ant-Man so great was it was focused and intimate. But still, I really enjoyed it. And when it came down to it in the end, I suppose we should flash spoilers, like all of our videos have spoilers. Spoilers! Stop listening if you haven't seen the movie. Go see the movie, then come back. Anyway, at the very end, when the movie really got to its height was in the final fight between Iron Man and Captain America, when it was really, raw and true. The rest of the movie kind of just felt flashy with lack of substance. I mean, it was there. It was certainly there. They definitely had something, which is what all these movies do. They always have something, and but I think it could have been better.
I think I'm sort of in a similar pool. I liked it a lot, but I didn't think it was great. I've honestly been a bit of a fan from the Marvel movies from the beginning. I've always enjoyed watching them, even the ones that I ended up feeling were kind of bad afterwards or just not very good. I still enjoy... Well, okay, except Iron Man 2. I think that's the only one that I was actively bothered by when I was watching it. All the others I've at least enjoyed, even if afterwards my opinion of them dropped a bit. Although, as I said before, I only think a handful of them, for me, the first Iron Man, the second Captain America movie, and the first Avengers are the only ones that I would consider really standout greats. And the rest, I think, are just good or solid in terms of being a good action movies. But I always have a good time watching them, and this one was no exception. My one biggest criticism of it is, and what held me back from finding it to be really great, was that it tried to do something very similar to what Batman v Superman tried to do, as in look at more of the cost of the world of superheroes, the cost of it to regular people, and also with the sort of intellectual or emotional crises that could result from the kind of situations these characters find themselves in. It tried to do the same thing. I think it handled it much better, but it's not ultimately. I felt the movie wasn't as smart as it thought it was or it wanted to be. or didn't have quite as much depth as I thought it was. There were moments, like I do agree with Casey. I think I think it really did hit its emotional stride towards the end. And that's mostly, I think that's mostly Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Iron Man. I think he really sold his character's sort of journey. But it doesn't, when you really boil it down, most of the conflict that leads to the quote unquote Civil War mostly stems from the fact that they just didn't talk with each other enough.
That's exactly what my problem is. Like, if they stopped for a second to talk about what they were worried about, they'd realize they weren't on the opposite sides. The argument was completely too. So Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark wanted to have people registered, and then Captain America was like, "No, Bucky's innocent." I'm like, guys, you're fighting about different things.
Yeah, it's really it's sort of it touches, or it opens up the questions that should lead to, or that could lead to legitimate, like, no easy answer conflict. Right. But it doesn't really delve into them. It pays them lip service, but it doesn't end up really being about that.
Which is where I think it pales compared to the Winter Soldier, which touches on a lot of serious, topics like surveillance and security,
and a lot of the ambiguity of power and how it could be handled. So yeah, I think that the Winter Soldier definitely did a much better job of that. So it's sort of, you could tell the movie wanted to be, or wanted to at least try to be, this think piece, or a lot of people wanted it to be, with the whole, are you Team Iron Man or Team Captain America? I don't think the movie quite nailed it. On the other hand, I felt the movie's biggest strength was it felt a lot slicker and smoother for me than the last Avengers movie, Age of Ultron, which my biggest issue with that was I kind of felt the movie started to groan under its own weight, with so many characters and so many side plots and mini arcs going on. You could feel Joss Whedon and the Marvel overlords like really stretching to make it all tie together. Here, there are just as many characters and side plots and side scenes going on, but it felt better,
more cohesive.
It felt more smoothly integrated. Like how they introduced Spider-Man. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. A great scene with him and Iron Man that, didn't go into too much detail, didn't, bore us to death, but it gave you just enough to understand, how this Spider-Man ticks and what, drew him and Iron Man to each other. And that was it. Like little stuff like that I felt it was handled much more smoothly than a couple of the past films. So that was the biggest strength for me, and the biggest weakness was not really being quite as deep as it wanted to be. But again, not enough to make it a bad film. I still thought it was quite good, but not great. So, Justin?
Well, guys, I guess I'm in the rare position of maybe liking this movie more than either of you, which actually surprises me quite a bit. Listening to some of the things that you guys said, I guess I can try to maybe defend this as I think one of the better. I think it is one of the better Marvel movies that I've seen, maybe, and I don't know. I'd have to think how it compares to maybe like Winter Soldier or the original Iron Man, which I think are probably my favorites. But I think what you guys were saying about them not talking to each other, to me that kind of made emotional sense, considering the very different place that the characters are in. So you have Captain America, there are kind of like two conflicts that this movie deals with. One is this idea of governmental intervention in the activities of the Avengers, which is addressed fairly early on, with Captain America thinking that, look, if anybody is going to be in charge of us, they have an agenda. I can't trust that. And that makes a lot of sense considering his past experience with S.H.I.E.L.D. turning out to be Hydra. So that's very consistent, I think, with his character and his situation. And then you have Iron Man on the other side, realizing the cost of the things that they've done and realizing that they need some kind of limitation or some kind of guiding hand to help them out and minimize casualties. But in addition to it being a practical reason, it's very much an emotional reason for him. And maybe the scene where he's confronted by Alfre Woodard, who plays the mother of a victim in Sokovia, I believe, which was the place they're at in Age of Ultron. That maybe drives it, that kind of drives it very hard, I think. puts. It's a great scene because she's Alfred Whitter's a great actress, but that I think is also informed by Tony Stark's experience. Now, I haven't seen Iron Man 2 or 3, but I can tell you in the original Iron Man, one of the things that he was trying to deal with there was the fact that his company is producing weapons that were accounting for the deaths of American soldiers. So there was very much this kind of responsibility, and I feel like this film is really illuminating that aspect of his character, which has been there since the beginning. So that's, I think, the main. So that sort of starts off as the main conflict between the two characters, and I think it's. I don't know if. I guess I don't know if talking is really something. They're just coming from such different places. They've both had very different experiences, and to me, like the fact that they couldn't reconcile that way just made sense based on their past experience. But yeah, that's sort of like the first major conflict of this, and I guess that's how that's kind of the first thing that starts to drive the rift between the two characters. The other thing, the Bucky situation, I think compounds that with, of course now, especially that he's been accused of setting off the bomb that killed Black Panther's father in addition to many other people. But I think again, the fact that Captain America defends Bucky in that situation is something that has been there from the first Captain America movie. Bucky was kind of the guy who looked out for him when he was a young shrimpy kid, and there's a kind of unyielding loyalty that I think Cap has for his friends and people that he trusts. But yeah, I guess the point that I'm trying to make with and the whole thing with Iron Man, I guess, and the rest of the people is that they think this is someone who they understand that he's not doing anything by choice. He didn't do anything, any of these incredibly terrible things by choice, but they know that he's still a weapon and he has to be contained. So again, it's coming from very different. They're coming from very different places.
That's the only word I can think. That's the only word I can think of to describe it. Is loyalty it's so central to Steve Rogers as a character.
Unyielding is a great word to describe this movie. I mean, that's the theme for both those characters. They would not move.
Yeah.
They would not give ground. Can I say my favorite thing about this movie were all the side characters? Ant-Man, Spider-Man, Black Panther. Black Panther stole the show, first of all.
I just recently, I finally sat down to watch Fruitvale Station, and I still need to see Creed, but holy shit am I pumped for Black Panther now.
And Tom Holland, or whatever his name is, phenomenal Spider-Man. I'm so excited for the next Spider-Man now.
Oh, so great. Are you referring to Michael B. Jordan, Noah?
No, the director, Ryan Coogler.
Oh, the director. Okay, I'm sorry. I must have missed that. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to be interesting because I feel like Marvel, for all the things I like about it, there's a way in which they don't seem to work well with auteurs, with people who have very strong personal visions. And not that there's pros and cons to each approach. But Coogler, having seen both Fruitvale Station and Creed, I think has a very strong personal vision in his work. And I guess I'm a little worried that maybe it might not be the right fit for him. I'm thinking of like someone like Edgar Wright, who dropped out of Ant-Man because it wasn't working for him, and the reason that's been stated is it was creative differences, which makes a lot of sense to me because Ant-Man, while having some moments that might remind me of an Edgar Wright film, does not feel like an Edgar Wright film.
Well, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to it because it'll finally be the first time when we'll have a black lead in a Marvel movie, and not only that, but one done by a black director, which is, I mean, it is either way, it is going to be a big milestone for this franchise in terms of can it break out of the sort of the white male straitjacket that it's been in, which has really been my one big issue with the franchise as a whole. It really has not gotten very diverse until Age of Ultron. was the first time where we really started to get some actual diversity in who was getting the main plot points, who was getting the main story beats, who was getting some of the flashier action bits. And it's something that I think is essential for this franchise if it's going to continue to be good and relevant going forward. The early movies were groundbreaking in their own way, but if it wants to continue to be groundbreaking, then it needs to find a way to, bring more women and minorities into, really, for lack of a better term, into the action. I think Black Panther will be a huge sign either way in terms of whether or not they can succeed at doing that. So just for that reason alone, I'm really interested to see how it turns out. And it could be terrible. The movie could be a piece of shit. But or it could be one of the best movies of the franchise, or it could just be okay. Either way, I'm really, really fascinated to see how it turns out.
Yeah, and I think you're speaking for what to me is another great strength of Civil War, which is the way that it balances its characters, and for the most part, I'd say they all kind of get their due. They all have their funny moments. They all have their more dramatic moments. I really appreciate, even though I wish there was a little bit more of her, I really appreciate that Black Widow is the one she seems to be the only one who really can see both sides.
Yeah, that's true, actually. She's the only one who kind of straddles the fence.
She's definitely well, see this, I think she's the one who kind of bridges the miscommunication, as I was saying earlier. There aren't two different, the main conflict is on two different sides. The thing you were saying earlier where there needs to be accountability versus whatever the other side was. Black Widow says, listen, Steve, I know you don't agree with what I think is the right thing to do, but you're just trying to get your friend out of a jam, so go ahead and help your friend. I trust you. So she's not really stepping over the side for the accountability. She's just placing her faith in her friend for this one thing. That's how I interpret it anyway.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is she's kind of, but she also, again, she has that experience, especially like the fact that she and Cap had developed more of a relationship, maybe not necessarily romantic, though it seemed like it at the time, with Captain America and Winter Soldier, I think makes sense to why she would be able to see his side. But even to me, that's a concession, though, to Steve Rogers' kind of thinking. And I guess I see the Bucky situation as sort of extrapolating from the original conflict, which is about accountability. And that Steve Rogers, he knows, like, that the idea that he knows what's best. He's the only one he can trust, again, based on his experience with just trying to do the right thing and serve, serve his country and seeing what that got him. I very much see the situation with Bucky as being a continuation of the accountability conflict that's at the beginning of the movie.
Well, it speaks to a basic divide just in concepts of criminal justice. Do you state, okay, this person did this and therefore is fully accountable and deserves to be punished? Or do you look at, are there psychological or environment factors like brainwashing, and Bucky is clearly brainwashed, that should mitigate the blame? And that is something and that does tie into questions of accountability, and it is something where people that are equally educated, equally capable, equally, cognizant of, the risks of different courses of action will still have very, very different ideas about what the right answer is, or if there's a right answer.
I mean, I guess that's what I think speaks to the strength of this film for me, is that I like that this film dares to sort of lurk in this morally gray area, and I guess that's also, I mean, it's also a reason why I think I liked Age of Ultron better than basically everyone. I've talked to a few people who also really like Age of Ultron.
I don't think anyone hated Age of Ultron.
No, but I feel like it's the one that had so much hype behind it, and then people saw it and they're like,
I think people were harder
it's kind of been forgotten. Yeah, I think they were but it's such a different film from the original Avengers. And one of the reasons why I like Age of Ultron better than the original Avengers is because I think it has more on its mind. It's a messier film, I would definitely concede that. But I think it's the fact that they had a film like that, which I really feel leads into this one, to me just showed that there's greater ambition to this universe than just the idea of these people. Oh, look, they're all so different. They're all from different movies, and look, they come together and they're friends. I mean, like, it's fun, it's entertaining, but like this movie also has that. It has the fun and has those entertaining moments. I love the fight in the airstrip because it's like it does have like a lot of the fight scenes that we wanted to see, but at the same time, it's very much a friendly kind of almost like an exhibition game in some ways.
Yeah, that is true.
These guys have such respect for one another, and what I also love about that sequence is that there's this constant upending of, like, you'll think that one hero has bested another, and then just another hero comes in and does something to undo that. And I just love it. It's like it almost plays like absurdist theater because nothing really is accomplished.
Well, it never loses its sense of humor. Like, you have Spider-Man, like, shooting out his webs and going, "Sorry, Mr. Stark says I have to do this."
Yeah, you can tell these guys are like pulling their punches, and gals are pulling their punches a little bit. You can tell that there's this respect and but also this almost futility to fighting with one another. All pretty evenly matched, and I really appreciated that. And the fact that it was done as a very comedic set piece, which lent some balance to the overall fairly heavy tone of this movie, particularly with the last scene with Iron Man and Captain America, where they beat each other within an inch of their lives.
Well, I think that really is key. The movie, up until the very end, the movie never loses its sense of humor, but it also doesn't. The jokes don't feel inappropriate or out of place. Like, I think one of my favorite shots in the movie was when you have the Captain America kissing what's her face. I don't know her name. That was another issue that really came out of nowhere, but it shoots back to the car. And you have Sam Wilson. Yeah, the Falcon. I only think of him as Anthony Mackie. But Falcon, you have Falcon, and then you have Bucky. And Bucky's been one of the most, like, he almost always just grimaces in every time you see him in these movies. But it cuts back to both of them. They're just like, "Yeah, get that boy, yeah." It's just like little moments of levity that really felt earned when they threw them in and weren't forced or anything like that. And that's I think that's key, because the number one complaint that came out of Batman v Superman, which again tried to do a very similar thing in terms of delving into the costs and questions of accountability, pretty much everyone who saw it said it was just joyless as all hell. And this movie is not joyless. It tries to be serious, and sometimes it does succeed, but it's not joyless, and it never stops trying to be fun.
Yeah, and I feel like that speaks to the balance that this film achieves, while not sacrificing any of the heavier, more dramatic moments. That's something that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate this. Well, it's funny because I guess one of the things I wanted to address was the any possible flaws, assuming that we'd all be, big fans of this. But I think you guys have spoken to some of the things that maybe held it back for you. I do want to mention. I guess I want to get your takes on the action scenes.
I don't know if I have anything negative. I thought they're always well done. I can't really think of a fight scene in the Marvel films that I don't enjoy.
They've always been well done, but a lot of them have ended up being a little samey, which was partly why, I think, which is why the first Avengers stood out for being the first time we really got that sort of epic brawl type of fight at the very end, rendered so well. And then with Captain America Winter Soldier, a lot that you had a more, not less so in the third act, and that's partly what that pulled down Winter Soldier a little bit for me. But for the most part, there was more focus on like really close hand-to-hand combat, which was really well done and intense, which made that stand out for me.
Actually, that's one of the things I've heard about a lot of the Captain America films tend to be more, for lack of a better word, intimate, because the fight scenes are much more intimate.
Well, Steve Rogers, his whole thing is he's super strong and fast, which really only is relevant in hand-to-hand combat. You know, Iron Man can shoot beams and missiles, Thor can shoot lightning.
Right, all long range type stuff. You're not, the heroes are not really ever that.
Well, let's not forget the shield, though. I mean,
Well, it's like a boomerang. He's still got to catch it. He's got to run up walls and.
Yeah, right. But it's. I guess what I'm saying is, it's not just like he's directly like face to face punching.
Right, but he's right there in the danger. So think of the first scene in the movie where that explosion goes off and he kind of like jumps up and hides behind the shield. He's really, he doesn't have a fancy suit of armor or is an immortal god.
I mean, it was sort of a lot of it. I felt a lot of it was the same with this film, with the exception of I did think the final three-way fight was properly intense, and the airport scene had a lot of there was a lot more creativity there in terms of how the powers were sort of bouncing off each other. Like the one I was trying to remember earlier who it was. Is it Spider-Man who throws the truck at War Machine? It's one of the characters throws a truck at War Machine, and it ends up being an oil tanker, so it explodes all around him. And the other character's like, and it might be Ant-Man. The other character's like, sorry, I thought it was a water tanker.
It might have been Ant-Man.
That was Ant-Man. I forget the guy who actually throws it, but Ant-Man gives him like the tiny truck.
That's right. He threw the tiny truck and then like expanded it, and then he was like, sorry, I thought that was a water tanker. So there's those two bits were the standouts for me. Other than that, I can't say there was much in the action that really made me sort of stuck out for me.
I forgot about the chase scene in the mid beginning.
Oh yeah.
I love the opening fight and I love the end fight where it's just raw and just raw emotion. And the airport fight was fun. I completely forgot about the chase scene.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, the two scenes, and sorry, I know that we're probably should get to closing now, but the two scenes that you guys mentioned, which I think will probably be the standout for a lot of people too, is the last scene, with Captain America and Iron Man and Bucky, and then the other scene with, and then the kind of huge team brawl at the airstrip. But I think like those two scenes I think are great and really well directed. I say like a lot of the earlier scenes, including the chase scene to some extent, though I think there's some good moments. I feel like there's a lot of this kind of like jerky camera and a lot of like very fast editing. And I think that's effective sometimes, but all the time I think it gets a little bit repetitive. I will say I was able to follow the sort of I was able to follow the action through that, but I kind of wished there had been a little more variety in terms of the filming of those scenes. I think they eventually rectify that with the final two fight scenes. But yeah, just to get to final thoughts here. I've tried to sort of talk about the things like why I think this film is one of the better Marvel movies, both in terms of thematics and just in terms of sheer entertainment value. But at the same time, I realize I concede it's not perfect. I think the fight scenes, like I mentioned, is one thing. I also think the fact that while I think there's an interesting idea to the collateral damage thing being part of this universe, maybe it's something that's hammered home a little too hard and kind of becomes like the central, I don't know if it really evolves in this movie. I think the characters deal with it in different ways throughout the film, but maybe that's an idea that could have been expanded upon. So yeah, I just close by saying that I think it is. I do think it is one of the better Marvel movies, but not perfect.
I'd put it in definitely in my top 5. How many movies are there?
10, 12?
There's 10, 12, something? Okay, so 5 is still good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely top 5. I think it'd be tied for number 1 would be Winter Soldier would be number 1. Then number 2 would be tie of the Avengers and the first Iron Man, and then I think this follows that.
Okay.
So it'd be third.
Okay. No, I really like the two. I've enjoyed following all of these movies. Yeah, and this was more enjoyment for me. Although, and of course, this is something that really applies to just about all of the movies. If you are, experiencing quote unquote superhero fatigue, or if you're not a fan of the Marvel films, this movie will not change your mind. So it's really, we're past the point now where a casual viewer can go into any one of these movies and be able to follow everything. So we're at the point now where you really have to be committed at this point. in order to get a lot of the stuff that comes in, which isn't a flaw, so to say, but it does limit to a certain extent who could enjoy this type of movie. I did though, and I don't think anyone who likes the Marvel franchise would dislike this movie. So that's all from my side for now, and I cannot wait for Black Panther.
Cool. Well, Casey, do you have anything you want
not
to
in addition.
say?
No,
Any
no.
kind of
You
closing
guys
thoughts, or?
have been thorough, and
Okay.
I've enjoyed this conversation.
Well, I guess that'll be it for us then. Before we go, I just want to plug Noah and I have websites where we write about film, and I thought we could plug them. So, Noah, do you want to give the name of your website and the link?
I need to see. I'm still using the Google format. I'm at francenoir.blogspot.com, and I think once we post this, because I did a written review of Captain America of Civil War after I saw it.
Okay, cool.
So that's we can include a link to that in the description,
Cool, yeah.
and from there you have the URL to all of my stuff.
And my website is thecinemaverick.com. I write about various things there. I review things. I should have something on the movie Green Room up there very soon, so look for that. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. Please like, subscribe. So thank you very much, and
Bye.
bye-bye for now.
Bye now.